Every minute, a forest the size of 20 football fields is cut down. If this doesn't change, in 100 years, there will be no rainforests. Atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide are 37% higher than they have been in 650,000 years. Plastic is now the most common form of marine debris. What world are we leaving for future generations? Everlast is committed to change. By creating eco-friendly building products that diminish the demand for tropical hardwoods. Everlast recycles waste products and turns them into sustainable and durable building products. Everlast decking, cladding and railing products are made using bamboo fiber, which grows 50 times faster than wood, requires no pesticides and generates only 2% of the waste of timber. Everlast also manufactures all composite products using solar power and is on track to have a net zero carbon footprint by 2021. Let's all commit to making a change to protect our world for future generations. Choose sustainability. Choose responsibly. Choose Everlast. Inspired by nature, designed for life. 2021 marks 15 years of innovation, and it all started with a dream and a product that was destined to shape and change the future of building products. Today, Everlast is responsible for bringing to market over 15 composite profiles and complementary systems in all major markets around the world. With an extensive product range made up of advanced composite technologies for various indoor and outdoor applications, Everlast continues to revolutionize the world of modern building products thanks to novel surface materials that offer weather, stain, and fade resistance like no other. Everlast's decking range, consisting of Apex, Infinity, and EverTech options, offer the ultimate in sustainable outdoor flooring, presenting a multitude of benefits such as little maintenance, weather resistance, slip and stain resistance, and low environmental impact. You'll be hard-pressed to find better decking, all which comes standard with industry-leading warranties. Available in an extensive range of colors, finishes, and authentic timber textures, Everlast decking is designed to outperform alternatives while beautifying any space. When looking for a smart cladding solution, Everlast VistaClad renders the finest look, function, and lifestyle benefits of any siding and cladding offering in the market. Available in Infinity and Apex profile options, Everlast Composite can be easily installed thanks to a smartly engineered clip strip. This premium composite cladding product provides superior protection from the elements, backed by industry-leading warranties. As the most advanced composite technology offered by Everlast, Lifespan provides a highly durable, environmentally friendly architectural structure that, thanks to its lightweight aluminium core, creates far-spanning and long-lasting pergola beams, cladding or screening profiles, and other decorative architectural showpieces. Available in several colors and sizes, with Lifespan, the architectural possibilities are endless. To complement any outdoor living space, Everlast offers two convenient railing systems, Rapid Rail and Fortress Railing. Lasting just as long as your deck, Rapid Rail is a durable balustrade product line that is as versatile as it is functional. With multiple styles and an expanding color range, Rapid Rail adds to the look of any home, while Fortress AL13 railing is an innovative, first-of-its-kind, fully pre-welded aluminium railing system. Distinctly different from aluminium kits, Fortress railing is attractive and easy to install with a simple bracket system, providing superior performance in strength and safety, which is a unique benefit to a pre-welded system. Not only does Everlast develop and manufacture composite building profiles, but also create fastening systems which are ideal for outdoor timber or composite projects. Everlast's range of Hulk fasteners are specially designed for decking, but can also be used for outdoor furniture assembly, cladding, outdoor frames, and pergolas. The advanced BitLock system used for Hulk fasteners maximizes torque transfer and makes installation quicker and more straightforward, and the resilient outer coatings prolong the product's overall lifespan. Inspired nature, both indoors and out, Everlast Tier flooring adds to a holistic product offering, which makes homes more durable, more beautiful, and much easier to maintain. With a moisture-resistant composite core and a hardy top wear layer that's scratch and stain resistant, Tier is designed for both style and function. With its foundations built on making a lasting difference in the world by providing innovative and environmentally friendly building solutions, all Everlast products are sustainable to the core. Not a single tree is cut down for the purpose of producing Everlast Composite. From the reused, recycled, and renewable raw ingredients Everlast used to create its products to the solar power harnessed to manufacture them, Everlast is proud to offer holistically sustainable composite building materials. With most products made up of 60% bamboo fibers and 40% recycled plastics, Everlast Composite is free from toxic chemicals and preservatives normally used in the treatment of timber. Everlast prides itself on the ability to continuously evolve and improve product offerings thanks to its dedicated and highly proficient research and development team. With core values built on respect, reputation, positive attitude, passion, and innovation, Everlast strives to enhance the building materials industry by investing in a great team of people to deliver exceptional building products and solutions.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And welcome, a special welcome also to President Kate Otten and to Vice President Ruben Reddy and our CEO Mtembeni Mkhize. My name is Sue Linning, and I'm the SAI executive responsible for the coordination and management of the work of the Practice Committee. I'd like to start with the words our Chair of Practice, Eugene, used last month at the inaugural event, because much of what he said just happens to be true for me also. Most of what I know about practicing architecture, I learned from others. Over the years, experienced colleagues were willing to share their knowledge with young practitioners like me. Throughout the 80s and 90s, SAIA ran mid-career courses, which were held over weekends. I attended many of these and learned much. If you were to talk in cricketing parlance, you would refer to those courses as 5-day cricket. Slow-moving, interactive, and thorough. It's now 20 years later. We live in a different world. Today, SAI's Practice Committee continues the T20 equivalent of those courses, and we've named it SAIAshare 105. It's run by SAIA members, for SAIA members, and for everyone interested in architecture, young and old. It will run for 1 hour and 5 minutes every first Friday of the month at 2:30 and consist of 2 exciting, power-packed presentations. Before I hand over to the first speaker, I'd like to introduce today's team. As hosts, we have Eugene Barnard and myself, David Peruten of Peruten Carroll, who will present later today, Corina Gibson, who will ensure the event runs smoothly, Nathan and Brendan Chapman from our sponsor, Everlast. And then our first speaker, Sydney Lefifi of LeMeg. Sydney has prepared a most detailed exploration into the intricacies of the procurement regime in the public sector, having dissected Treasury regulations to resolve if these presented an opportunity or an obstacle. Sydney, we look forward very much to being enlightened. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sue. As is the case with everyone, I am excited to be here this afternoon. A good afternoon to all our colleagues in attendance this afternoon. And I wish to extend a special word of appreciation to Eugene, Corina, and Sue. So, as outlined, we will be looking at Treasury regulations that affect the architect. And here we go. The key points of this discussion: we're going to look at government as a corporate entity or a very large company, if you like. We'll look at finance ministry within this corporate entity. We will look at Public Finance Management Act, widely referred to as PFMA. We'll look at National Treasury, which is established through the PFMA. So we say without PFMA, there is no National Treasury. And 5, we look at the financial regulatory framework by National Treasury. We'll look at state organs, and lastly, the architect. The architect can engage early in this process and can do so directly with National Treasury, but we'll look at that in detail. And then value chain is an important subject related to this discussion, but due to a time limit, we will not discuss it. So, just like any other country, South Africa has an elected government. In this discussion, we will only consider government as a corporate state and we will avoid the political component. My submission this afternoon seeks to highlight opportunities within the legislative framework, in particular regulations led in the Finance Ministry. Topic 1 is about government. The Microeconomic Policy Framework is a government-led vision that seeks to create a united, democratic, non-sexist, and non-racist society. This diagram shows 5 microeconomic policy framework strategies initiated since 1994. Yet, socio-economic challenges remain largely unresolved. First, it was the RDP in 1994, GEAR in 1996, ASGISA in 2005, NGP in 2010, and most recently, the NDP. The RDP is primarily misunderstood by society, including the architect, and this was our first microeconomic policy. As you can see in this picture, this picture has become the general understanding of the RDP policy. At a glance, there are 6 key pillars in the microeconomic policy framework, which are considered national priorities. First one is decent work and sustainable livelihoods, economic and social infrastructure, rural development strategy, fighting corruption, building a developmental state, strengthening skill space. And of the 6 goals, economic and social infrastructure is most relevant among the built environment professionals. The National Development Plan is the current strategy. There are 12 developmental goals that are defined within the NDP. So in order to manage multiple goals defined in the microeconomic policy framework, government is structured into 27 ministries and 35 departments. 8 of the departments require our direct interaction. As suggested, there are 8 ministries with which we can interact and relate. And of the 8, the Finance Ministry is the focus of this conversation. Our second topic looks at the Finance Ministry. The ministry entails 10 entities referred to as the finance family. The finance family, in my view, anchors all government structures. We highlight National Treasury as our focus this afternoon. I must offer encouragement that while many have become discouraged by government, the Finance Ministry maintained top game. The minister is the political head, while the key person is the Director General. All Director Generals of the Finance Ministry have been an impressive bunch. They made a significant contribution to South Africa's fiscal and economic health and its standing in investors' eyes. In the first administration, we saw Trevor Manuel and Maria Ramos, who were introduced in 1996. Second and third administration, we saw Trevor Manuel again, and Leseja Kganyago from 2005 until 2009. The fourth and fifth administration, that is from 2009, we saw Pravin Gordhan and the highly regarded Lungisa Fuzile. Again, in the fifth administration from 2014, Nkankanene and Lungisa Fuzile. Fuzile has since moved to become the current CEO of Standard Bank. And for the third time in the fifth administration, we saw Malusi Gigaba and Dondo Mahajani. And in the sixth and current administration, we have Tito Mboweni and Dondo Mahajani. And so the Ministry of Finance continues. Our third topic looks at the Public Finance Management Act, or PFMA in short. There is also the Municipal Management Act, but this is not for this discussion. The Public Finance Management Act establishes the National Treasury. So without the enactment of the PFMA, we would not have a National Treasury. The PFMA places no specific obligation over the general public. Instead, it articulates a mandate for the National Treasury to establish regulations that imposes obligations over the general public, including the architect. Our fourth topic is the National Treasury as established through the PFMA. The National Treasury is structured into 10 entities for which the Director General is responsible. We will only look at the Budget Office as well as the Chief Procurement Office. The National Treasury establishes various regulations, and so specific regulations that relate to economic and social infrastructure are those that we'll focus on. The first one is Regulation 16, known as P regulation. Second one is E-Government and Central Supplier Database Regulation. Third is the Infrastructure Delivery Management System. 4, Unsolicited Proposals Regulation. 5th, Special Economic Zones Regulation. In our fifth topic, we look at the finance regulations, which relate only to infrastructure. The first regulation is Regulation 16 of the PFMA, which is known widely as Public-Private Partnership, or P in short. P is a commercial transaction between a public entity and a private entity, in terms of which a private entity performs government function on behalf of government for compensation and for a stipulated period, after which the asset is transferred back to government. The P model was introduced in South Africa in 1998. Since then, a total of 34 completed P projects valued at 89.3 billion have been undertaken. The regulatory framework is tightly managed. Stakeholders are therefore expected to bring their top game to navigate the process. Much of the onerous regulatory framework is considered red tape by others. In a Mail and Guardian publication, Vikas Kruger of the UCT School of Business affirms that South Africa's P program is one of the most well-known and successful globally, not just in the African region. He adds that not only are the procurement processes transparent, efficient, and effective, but more than 90% of the projects have been realized within 2 to 3 years of their contracts being signed. The basic process in terms of Regulation 16 of the PFMA is defined in 5 stages. First one is inception, and you'll note a key person there is a transactional advisor. And in my submission to you, I suggest that the architect is most suitable to fulfill the role as a technical transactional advisor. We do have 3 types of transactional advisors. First one being legal, second one being financial, and the third one technical. Step 2 is feasibility. Step 3 is procurement. 4 is contracting. 5 is management. These are P projects that have been completed to date. At 31.8 billion rands, the Gautrain remains a flagship project completed as a P project in 2010. The 20 billion rand Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project is a P project, which is notoriously known as the e-toll. May I also highlight the sad shortcoming on the Gautrain project. Gauteng government agreed to a patronage guarantee, which is intended to guarantee a minimum required total revenue. The patronage guarantee has since increased from 360 million rands per year in 2010 to 1.5 billion rands per year in 2018, which is a staggering 317% increase. We see this as an equivalent of a government bailout. You will also notice the 2 billion rands City of Tshwane municipal offices, which was completed in 2015 to replace the former Munitoria, which burnt down. You also notice the Cradle of Humankind Interpretation Center, which was also a P project. Further opportunities where P contracts are expected to be undertaken are within the development corridors established in Gauteng. They are the Central Development Corridor, which includes Maboneng, Newtown, and Waterfall mixed-use development. The Eastern Corridor includes the planned O.R. Tambo University of Science and Innovation. Third is the Northern Corridor, which includes Roseland Outer City and Mainland Main. Fourth is the Western Corridor, which includes the planned Lanseria Smart City and developments in the vicinity of Steyn City. The last one is the Southern Corridor, which includes the planned Savannah City. Maboneng is situated within the Central Development Corridor. Are there opportunities, or do we see obstacles in P? The fact is, regulatory framework is onerous, the process is tightly managed, there is a greater risk to a private partner, the architect unfortunately plays an insignificant role in the process in the earlier stages. Obstacle, the regulations are seen as a red tape. Funding partners flee from volatile political, economic, and social environments. What are opportunities? The architect can get involved early in the process through National Treasury and help identify new projects. The architect has the potential to bring the much needed planning and technical skill to the process, which is currently financially driven. The second regulation is e-government. It is worth noting that government has placed a substantial investment in information systems technology. The key legislation for e-government is the Public Service Act of 1994. E-government and e-commerce are collectively offer e-services. The e-filing is one of the most successful e-government initiatives. The Central Supplier Database is one of the e-services or the e-service offerings. CSD maintains a database of organizations, institutions, and individuals who can provide goods and services to the government. The South African Built Environment Exchange, or SAP-EX, is of special interest because many of the higher institutions of education have moved their entire supply chain management to this platform. So if you do wish to do work at any of the universities in South Africa, then the platform that has been created is SAIAX. It is a system that is under development, but has since been activated. Is there an opportunity or even more obstacles? The fact is, e-services program is going ahead. Despite challenges, think of the challenges that are faced each year by the Gauteng Provincial Department of Basic Education, and also recently the e-NATIS driver licensing challenges. All these challenges indicate that something is being done. Government is moving ahead with the systems. What are obstacles? E-services related to the architect are led by a non-architect. What are opportunities? We can engage Treasury and establish BIM, or Building Information Modeling, as part of the e-services. The third regulation, in line with government's vision to create social and economic growth opportunities through infrastructure investment, the National Treasury established the Infrastructure Delivery Management System, known widely as the IDMS. The system exists for planning, budgeting, procurement, delivery, maintenance, operation, monitoring, and evaluation of infrastructure projects. We are currently working on a large regional hospital project where IDMS in the form of FID-PM FID-PM challenges accounting officers. The project illustrates the value that the architect can bring if they get involved in early stages of project identification. Here's a view of the main entrance, the detailed functional facade system which integrates major hospital services, the facade at another angle. Gateway reviews are the essence of FID-PM. The focus of these reviews is on the quality of the documentation, and thereafter on whether or not the project can be delivered, what are the expected benefits, affordability, and value for money. The following gates are established in the FID-PM. FID-PM. Procurement Gate 1, permission to start the project. Gate 2, contracting and pricing strategy. Gate 3, procurement documents. Gate 4, establish cash flow. Gate 5, solicit tenders. Gate 6, tender evaluations. Gate 7, contracting or contract award. Gate 8, contract administration. Are there opportunities or obstacles when one considers FID-PM? FID-PM is created from a financial perspective, not so much from a technical perspective. It is managed by public officials in state organs. The architect in practice is often left out of this process. The state, and what are obstacles? The state organs lack institutional capacity to manage infrastructure projects as prescribed by FID-PM. SAICAP, on the other hand, prescribes a parallel delivery process. There is no coordination at all. The architect is not geared to interact with ordinary members of society, and in particular, state officials. Opportunities is that by understanding the National Treasury, the architect possesses a technical skill to unlock and generate projects. The architect can help to align architectural processes with financial processes. BIM is a workflow engineered in the built environment realm. Architects can engage to ensure that this workflow forms part of the infrastructure delivery process. The fourth regulation deals with unsolicited proposals, USP in short. USP means any submission received by the state outside the usual procurement processes. The submission is expected to be innovative, unique, and provided by a sole supplier. The following steps are considered when the state receives a UPS or an unsolicited proposal. USP is either considered or rejected. Once considered, three possible routes become available. The USP is compliant, or the USP is triple P compliant, or it is triple P non-compliant. When compliant, which is most desirable, the Supply Chain Management Practice Note 4.2.1 is triggered. When triple P compliant, Regulation 16 is triggered. When triple P non-compliant, USP Treasury Practice Note 4.2.3 is triggered. The compliant USP can proceed as a direct contract with the state without a tender process, if you follow the red line. The triple P compliant USP are then subjected to normal procurement processes. A formal agreement is then entered. The project then proceeds to full implementation. Any opportunities or obstacles rather? Fact is, USPs can fast-track infrastructure projects in South Africa. Unsolicited, innovative ideas always thrive when developed without procurement hindrances. What is the obstacle? The architect often failed to identify socio-economic projects. The state generally identifies such projects. An opportunity, this is an open invitation. I say to all, break a leg. The fifth regulation and the last regulation deals with special economic zones, SEZ in short. The SEZ Act defines an SEZ as an economic development tool to promote national economic growth. There are four types of SEZs, being the free port, the free trade zone, the industrial development zone, and sector development or specialized zones. The following economic zones are designated, and they are in no particular order. Atlantis SEZ is in the Western Cape. Dube Trade Port SEZ is in Durban. East London IDZ. Uha Development Corporation in Port Elizabeth. Gauteng OR Tambo SEZ. Nkomazi SEZ in Mbombela. Musina Makhado SEZ in Limpopo. Richards Bay IDZ. Saldanha Bay IDZ. And so, in the interest of time, we'll end the discussion on regulations here. Our final topic concludes the discussion and looks at the architect. Let me introduce to you Mama Nomsa. She sells food in her mobile food stall to professionals in Midrand, including to architects. She charges an average of 40 rands a plate and sells about 100 food plates per day. Mama Nomsa makes an average of 88,000 gross monthly income, about 1.1 million rands per annum, Her total expenses averages 20%, and she has no tax obligation. And here is Naledi Chirwa, a young EFF politician and a member of parliament. She is 27 years old. She earns gross monthly income of 96,000 rands, annual gross of 1.2 million rands. She receives medical aid cover and retirement annuity. She receives additional income from EFF. And there is Luvuyo, a candidate architect at Public Works. The Public Servants Collective Bargaining Council, or PSCBC, advocates for public servants and publishes salary scales. It stipulates that Luvuyo will earn 40,200 rands per annum and about 480,000 rands per annum. Luvuyo is a candidate architect. In the same vein, Zola is a grade B chief architect at Public Works and earns 83,000 rands per month and about 990,000 rands per annum. They both receive health, retirement, and other benefits. And here's George. George is an architect. He works for a medium-sized practice. With 5 years of experience and professional registration, he earns approximately 35,000 rands per month and about 420,000 per annum. George receives no additional benefits. He works a minimum of 16 hours a day. George is more educated than Mama Nomsa, yet he battles to sustain a meaningful life. He will possibly remain employed in the same position for the rest of his life. When circumstances permit, George receives annual inflation-adjusted increases. But because George is an architect, he does not understand the difference between inflation and real growth. Inflation has increased by 364.7% since 1994. Hypothetically speaking, if the economy can achieve a zero inflation over this period, George would be earning 7,500 rand. Yeah, 7,500 rands from 1994 to 2021 without inflation. Although this is a hypothetical submission, there are real economic debates on the attractiveness of a zero inflation. Simply put, inflation erodes the purchasing power of any currency. Accordingly, George does not enjoy economic growth. We must correlate this with an architectural practice. Turnover in a practice should be evaluated against GDP and population growth, not inflation. Financial regulations aim to achieve value for money. I suggest that our architectural services should equally offer us value for money. Thank you. This was very tight. I have probably taken out 50% of the content just to stay within 20 minutes.
Thank you, Sydney. Not quite 20 minutes, so we'd like to say thank you very, very much. It is a dense subject, which we recognize, and it will definitely have to have further interrogations around the USPs, around the opportunities that there may be for smaller practitioners. I would really like to hand over now to our sponsor, very briefly, Nathan Chapman, Vice President of Everlast. He is responsible for global sales and product and brand. Nathan, thanks very much for being here today, and thank you again for your time and effort.
Thank you, Sue. And thank you to SAIA for putting together such a great initiative. We appreciate the platform and being afforded the time to interact with your members. I'd like to take the opportunity to provide some background and perhaps a little bit more detail into Everlast as a business, and hopefully provide some more context to the products that we manufacture. For anybody that's not aware of both our business and the timber plastics composite building materials industries. So to start, Everlast is a South African company that was founded in 2006, which would mean we're celebrating our 15th year of operations this year. Everlast specializes in design and manufacture of timber or wood plastic composite building products. And where we have traditionally utilized timber fiber as a part component input of the production of our products, in recent years we've transitioned to bamboo as the main constituent. And while bamboo is timber-like in its properties, it's classified as a grass, so it's not a true timber, which is important to note. And for anybody familiar with the Everlast business, we're mostly known for decking products, but the business has changed significantly over the last 15 years, and now Everlast is responsible for bringing to market leading brands in 6 different building materials categories. And we now distribute these products nationally in over 30 countries around the world. So there's been a lot of change in the business over a relatively short period of time. Notably, we now distribute in major economic territories where it's the use of wood plastic composite or bamboo plastic composite products, in our case, are most prominent, such as North America, most of Western Europe, Australia, parts of South America, and Southeast Asia. What is important, I think, to note is the harshness of the South African climate has provided Everlast with a unique position in the global composites market, as we were fortunately able to learn how to adapt our technologies to provide a higher performance required, was required to deal with the environment that we experience in South Africa while trying to maintain a competitive cost point. And what it's resulted in is a balance of product performance, aesthetic, and value through the process. It's been extremely well received throughout the industry, and through acquisition, we've become the 4th largest manufacturer in our sector globally by volume, and now hold multiple product and system patents in decking, cladding, screening, pultrusion, fasteners, for novel product design, product systems, and product techniques. So we're very proud to be a South African building materials business that has been able to successfully develop and export its technologies into these highly competitive global markets, to the extent that we have, and in some instances lead and develop innovation. And being a South African business and African business, having respect for protecting the environment is a founding principle in our business, and a defining purpose in our business. It's echoed in our tagline, which some people may be familiar with: inspired by nature, designed for life. And having the global platform we've fortunately been able to develop, we're dedicated to raising environmental awareness, which some of you may have seen in the videos leading the presentations that have been presented, and sustainably developing environmentally friendly products that use sustainable resources like bamboo and recycled plastic is a very important component of our business. And further to those founding principles, we've taken initiatives to manufacture the products using solar energy, which you may have seen in some of the product presentations. So just important things, I think, that we'd like people to understand about the business. And in conclusion, interaction with architectural professionals is a critical element in understanding the use of our products. So we really appreciate the platform, and interacting with the members. As I said earlier, this is the second event that we're interacting with, and we do intend to interact more with SAIA on further events. So we appreciate the time. Thank you, and be handing over to Eugene.
There we are. Sorry about that. My name is Eugene Barnard, practice chair, and if Sydney gave us the main course, then David, who I will introduce in a minute, is going to give us the dessert. David Perutin graduated from UCT in 1988 and gained valuable experience abroad, first at Shepherd Robson in London and then at the New York firm Gensler. David is passionate about design. He has been the driving force behind the design process at Perutin since its establishment in 1997. That's nearly a quarter of a century ago. The practice is now operating as Perutin Carroll. He has a particular interest in interiors and space planning. He also has an extensive and varied design portfolio. David continues to strive for excellence in design. I have had the privilege of being exposed to the work and approach of Perutin Carroll architects through David's brother, Simi, with whom I have served on the practice committee for the past decade. I've come to understand and appreciate the passion and the focus with which the team approach and execute projects. The topic of David's presentation this afternoon is potentials and constraints, designing buildings in the real world, and aren't we all in the real world? Thank you, David. We look forward with expectation to your presentation, and may I say, dessert.
And again, thank you, Sue, as well, for setting up this platform and inviting me to share some thoughts on my topic. And thank you, Karina, for making this happen. And I also want to recognize Sydney's contribution, an absolutely terrific and very strong content-driven presentation, a tough act to follow, I must say, and certainly lots of food for thought. And, you know, Sydney, I didn't know that you knew that, but George works for us. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Okay, I'll get on to my topic. Thanks and good afternoon, everyone. As you know, the title of the talk, as Eugene mentioned, is Potentials and Constraints, Designing Buildings in the Real World. But be assured, this is not an academic paper or an attempt to educate a clearly educated audience. I see it as an opportunity for me to share a bit about my own or our own experience of to date in practice of designing and building buildings and managing to stay in business. More importantly, over the past 24 years. But before, you know, so I confess that when Eugene asked me, I was a little hesitant, if not reluctant, but here we are and I'll give it a go. Bit of background, Eugene did mention some of it, but in more than 30 years in the industry, my own career has developed somewhat organically, I'd say, but always with a definite focus on design. It's where my personal interests and abilities lie, I think. And as it happens, the practices that I was employed in were well and truly established in the commercial world of architecture. It's where it's the environment that I cut my teeth. But in that time, learning from others, I learned that navigating the concepts of potentials and constraints simply means finding necessary ways to get the job done. I learned how to adapt to the rigors of designing in the real world and hopefully to be able to produce quality work that meets the client's brief and budget, while at the same time being efficient enough to ensure our continued ability to do what we do. For a bit of context, in '97, I started Perutin Architects with my brother Simi, who represented for me the epitome, I suppose, of someone who understood the strategic and more management-related aspects of project delivery that are absolutely critical and that I was clearly weaker at, perhaps, or less interested in. We were the perfect yin and yang. I'm responsible for all design-related processes throughout the projects, while Simi, as managing director, handles the financial management and contractual aspects of both projects and the running of our business. So broadly, it's the clarity and the separation for me of these roles that has sustained us and allowed us to build the practice over these past years. But not only that, the split of roles has created a healthy tension in our studio. I can certainly say it fosters sometimes passionate debate about the way we execute projects. And so I must acknowledge, as the design director, I have been very fortunate to be allowed to push the envelope, explore potentials, dream the dream, if you like, while Simi has steered and guided projects through the constraints, the myriad of constraints that building in the real world imposes. But as you can see, we do get the job done. So it could be said that if I'm seen as the potential, Simi or the management could be seen as the constraint in the most healthy way possible. I don't say that with any negativity. On the contrary, for us, this tension, this interdependency has established a culture of excellence in our practice that continually pushes all of us to improve, to raise design standards as far as we can, but to do so in an extremely well-managed process. Of course, that puts clients' needs first, but certainly looks after our own. So I recall a module at university that focused on this topic, potentials and constraints. I can't recall the specifics, but it asked us to think about the idea of the concepts of potentials and constraints in design. And it quickly became clear to me that the lesson in the learning was about how to find potential within the constraints. It is not just about the dream. It is about a dream within a framework. And these were and not a mutually exclusive concept. At university, of course, we all know that the real world constraints weren't really part of the thinking or teaching. Our exploration was limited to an understanding of the site we selected, the brief for the project, and then our own imagination. The most obvious of these constraints was, of course, the site analysis, the context studies, the project brief requirements, etc. A relatively superficial entree, I would say, into the project. No zoning scheme, no title deeds, no budget, etc. Those were the days. Although we were encouraged to think prudently. And it was then up to our imagination to conceptualize and design a building. I acknowledge that I state this somewhat simplistically, and I am talking about 30 years ago. But of course, at that time, that was all we really needed to learn at that stage of our professional journey. In education, perhaps times have changed, and if it has, I certainly acknowledge that. Fast forward to now to today, 24 years as Perutan architects, and you may have seen on social media and other platforms that we have recently merged with the legendary office of Louis Carroll Architects. To our mutual benefit, we feel we've consolidated this combination of our experience to become our own next chapter, Perutan Carroll Architects. So as I reflect on how to tell the story of the way in our practice we have harnessed potential from constraint over the years, I must admit that I became increasingly conscious of an inconvenient truth. And it is this, that after all the necessary analysis of constraints and the dream has begun, and the constraints I'm talking about are site specifics, topography, features, orientation, existing buildings if a brownfield site, urban context, heritage framework, environmental frameworks, town planning regulations, title deeds. Now, this could go on, but those are the main ones. Following that analysis, and we have a full picture of what these various frameworks will allow us to construct. There was one constraint that appeared as something of a golden thread, if you like, that tracked its way from inception to handover, that for me fundamentally prescribed the outcome. And that constraint, unfortunately, is money, fortunately or unfortunately. So I became interested in the idea of how this influences our process, both of the project and how it impacted the project and how it impacts the way we execute projects in-house. So for me, real world design is about extracting value, real and perceived, within the financial constraints of a project. It's not a topic that's well covered in our education, not commonly discussed even on platforms such as these. It's often, as I describe it, only whispered in the frustrated corridors of the designer's mind. But it is, for us, the reference point that most significantly influences and shapes our thinking in all aspects of project procurement, from inception to handover. So how does it work with us? Of course, we're approached by a client, and it starts with a discussion. I like to make a distinction. Clients like to focus on the dream to start. And of course, there is a difference here between private clients building their dream home and commercial clients for whom the prime objective is a financial return. But both have their eye firmly fixed on the financial, firmly fixed on the financial constraints of a project. It's our job to find the potential within that. So in that discussion, we discuss scope, feasibility, and of course, our fees. For me, this essentially sets up, and this is the essence of the message, I suppose, I'd like to get across today. It sets up two parallel streams of financial control. There's the financial framework on the left of the project and all the implications that budgets and procurement strategies have on that. And there's, of course, the in-house financial framework that influences, shapes, and determines our project team and program. And those two streams are really running in parallel throughout the project. For the project, the design process is in many cases a continuous value engineering process, and I mean that again in a positive way. It's the sense, it's about the exercise of extracting maximum value, being acutely mindful of the brief from the client and the conditions, the prevailing conditions of the site and the context. Of course, the environment. Critical to us is how we respond to and contribute to the environment. But when I say a value engineering process, really what I mean is that all design decisions ultimately get tested against a value framework. It's as simple as that. Every stage concludes with a revision to the budget and a formal acceptance of that. This is standard practice for us, and I'm sure for all of us in the room. But while the end result is sometimes different to the initial intent, we will know if we have worked within the frameworks provided, we would have pushed the boundaries and have produced the best outcome we could. So again, I imagine that everyone knows what I'm talking about. But it must be said that every day I and my design team are managed in-house by our management team, who are singularly committed to ensuring the financial health of our practice. So what I'm talking about here is the second stream of financial constraint that relates to our fees and how we spend them. We can pause for a moment on the slide because we think this is a particularly light-hearted but absolutely truthful analysis of our process, of the process we often find ourselves in. Let's put it that way. So I wanted to mention it here because this thread of how we agree fees and then spend them in-house, as it were, is a thread totally invisible to the client, but it determines ultimately whether we remain in business or not, and it's that simple. So how do we do it? In our office, we use amazing design software, incredible design software that enables us to explore the design, as many of us do, I'm sure, in great detail, mainly in 3D, and to present our designs to the client in ways that leaves almost nothing to the imagination. Virtual walkthroughs, for example, are absolutely common these days, and that's amazing. But this takes time, and for us, in essence, that's what we do. Aside from our skills as designers and architects, we sell time, and time can be a constraint. So we accept that we need to monitor and manage our time well. And for this, we use a very powerful timesheet software that allows us to plan, track, and monitor our progress to the point where we can predict literally a project-specific financial outcome for our practice ahead of time and take the necessary action. But you can see how, to the design and production teams, might I say, this management strategy could qualify as a constraint. So in general, our experience is it's relatively easy to remain on track through the design stages. And I'm talking about stages essentially 1, 2, and 3. As we move into technical documentation and stage 5 contracts, we've found that we need a very focused and careful management focus through the technical documentation in order just to remain profitable and sometimes even just to break even. So critical management through the stages 4 and 5. Particularly, we've found when it comes to changes after stage 3, mostly initiated and made by the client. We've found that, I could say, to stay afloat in a project, preventing or eliminating changes after stage 3 is absolutely vital, critical in fact. We have sometimes come unstuck on projects where this has not been effectively managed. So to that end, we produce a comprehensive and detailed document, which we call the stage 3 document. comprehensive document. This document records every single design decision taken throughout stages 1, 2, and 3, including all consultant work and the iterations of the budget, with a final agreed to budget confirmed and effectively included in this document. And once this document is signed off by the client, and we go to great pains to ensure this happens, it becomes for us the benchmark against which all further technical information and contractual information for that matter is measured. So what I've outlined so far, I think, is how the process of design and procurement for us is a fluid and interactive process that constantly seeks to balance the needs of our client, the project, with our own business efficacy. After all, I could say we all know we're in this industry for many good reasons. Among them, may I list them: commitment to our clients, this is among others, of course, a passion for design excellence, a passion for quality service delivery, and a strong desire to contribute positively to both the built and the natural environment. That's a given, and I could go on, but I'm sure that few of us are in it to lose money. So all of that said, I would like to take you through a sampling, effectively, of projects that are current or recently completed in our office. And this is by no means exhaustive or completely covers the range, but it does show a range of different typologies. We're fortunate to straddle both the residential and the commercial sectors of our industry, and we're active in both. So what I'm going to show you, the first one, don't be too alarmed. Nigeria, this is a water tower project in Nigeria. And a little bit of the context, we received this particular image or a version of this image, this model, from the clients in Nigeria. The clients are contractors and engineers who are representing a state governor who is bent on creating a legacy project for him in his home state, for the people of his state. And it's a water storage tower on a prominent hilltop in Nigeria. The structure that you see there is in fact the tank, and of course its supporting structure. And this is what we were given, with an instruction to try to embellish and to improve its aesthetic, but to retain the original structure, or by the way, it's under construction, it's not built yet, but to retain the essence of the structure that we inherited, and to use all of the work that had gone previously, but to embellish and enhance, if you like. And so this is a white card version of what we managed to do in a relatively short space of time. The potential for this was really a free-thinking client who wanted to go beyond what he'd seen or what he'd developed with his engineer colleagues. And of course, an open development framework was the potential, because there really are no fundamental town planning restrictions and regulations governing this, other than the functionality, of course, of the tower, of the water tower itself. For us, the constraints in this instance was an inherited structure. We started with a starting point, and that we couldn't go backwards. Effectively, we could only go forwards. Of course, local content, understanding what was available, local technology. We were shown. Apology, let me go back there. We were shown examples of what happens to some of the facilities in the state that we're building this in, and so low maintenance was a critical factor and a constraint in that sense. Budget is always a constraint, so we pushed it as far as we could, and of course we had a limited service appointment insofar as we inherited an existing engineered structure that we had to move forward from, not backwards. So it's quite an exciting project, and we like to think that we have enhanced the original look of the tower. That's currently on the drawing boards and under construction in Nigeria. The next project, and I'm only going to show this slide on the project because I want to talk about it in terms of the process that it is currently in, and a little bit about where it began. The image on the left, called Inherited Design, again, our wonderful merger with Louis Carroll Architects allowed us in some cases to pick up where they left off. And by that I mean there were projects tested in the office of Louis Carroll in different places. This one happens to be in Accra, Ghana. And designs were produced for a particular set of clients at that time. The project went dormant for some years, in fact, and soon after our merger, we were the beneficiaries of a resurgence of this particular project. Enter a new corporate entity, well, I think it's a global, certainly a continental corporate entity that were interested in the site and the building, but they wanted it a different shape. So the first constraint was keep the principle of what the so-called inherited design was. In other words, the footprint was similar, the concept of an elliptical shape occupying a prominent corner site, but they wanted it shorter and fatter is the easiest way I could describe it. They wanted a bigger footprint and a shorter building. So we had to take off 3 or 4 floors, and we had to find a way of meeting a typical floor target that they wanted to achieve their objectives. That was the very first exercise that we did, and we came up with the image in the middle, which we call redesign 1, I suppose, and it involved, as I say, expanding the footprint. So a lot of work had been done structurally, a lot of work. In fact, the hole for the basements had already been excavated and is in evidence today in Ghana, waiting for a building to be built into it. And now we are in the process with the new corporate client to, again, value engineer to meet target budgets. So if I had to describe simply potentials and constraints in this particular project, it was very powerful early designs that inspired, if you like, a prominent position, the site in a prominent position, a new, very committed corporate occupier client, amongst others. And yeah, free thinking client, I would say as well. And some of the constraints that we experienced was, of course, in as much as the early designs were a potential, they were also a constraint insofar as we had to use as much of it as we could. And then, of course, the value engineering process, designing effectively down what you can see, the 2 images on the left went from a glazed patterned glass screen on the white box, as you can see on the left of the image, to a kind of rendered blockwork wall with puncture windows. And we all know how that feels in that process. So it's about finding ways of preserving the essence of the structure while of the essence of the concept and the idea of these 2 interlocking forms, without but meeting target budgets at the same time. So that's Ghana. I suppose change pace a little bit, and the images that you're seeing now are of a house in Cape Town that we've recently completed. And I will talk a little bit about the potentials and constraints in this one. We had a very educated and sophisticated client, I would say, a European client, in fact, from Switzerland, a very exacting client. And the site was just a magnificent site, a very large site, greenfield site in Bishop's Court, with views, as you can see here, a very verdant site. So it was about how to occupy that site, maximizing the occupants' exposure and relationship with the environment around them, and meeting their concerns for the environment. The constraints in this one, really, as sophisticated a client as he was, he also became the constraint, and he got incredibly involved in the process of construction, and that became quite a significant hamstring to us, a difficult process to manage. We also started this, or agreed at a certain point, this project, a fixed fee agreement that had significant impacts on how the process was managed. We certainly managed to get it done, as you can see, and we like to think it's a beautiful object, but it came at a cost to the practice, and sometimes we have to absorb those. The next house I put in because, though it was completed some years ago, it it really was a one-off, and it's a demonstration of the I suppose privilege that we had at that time to engage in this particular project on the Atlantic seaboard. A one-off house, a client, a father and son team who wanted to build the ultimate man cave, and in one of the most spectacular sites on the Atlantic seaboard. And the son in particular, with the acquiescence of the father, I'm not sure how reluctantly or not reluctantly, but had been inspired by James Bond, had been inspired by the Iron Man house, and through his own self-education had found the work of John Lautner in California, and those were, believe it or not, three vocal aspects of or vocal points in their brief to us, as to what they were looking for. Of course, it's a one-off opportunity for us to explore something like that, and I like to think that we made full use of it. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. And a conclusion, I will say that while I've banged on a bit about the money and how it influences the entire project, it does, but it's only really until the day it's handed over. Of course, when private clients move into their new home, or corporates occupy their new headquarters, or developers, let's say, sell their products and receive their sales income, their and our pain gradually fades, and what they are left with as a result of our skill in finding the potential inside of all the constraint. It's also true that we, the general public, are all left with the outcomes of these endeavors, the buildings themselves. So as a message, when I look, or when we look at a newly completed work, whatever it is or wherever it may be, we understand that it's the result of a highly complex, value-driven process. And while the bricks and mortar evidence can be accurately measured, perceived value is a commodity that can't be priced. So, parting message, it is incumbent on all of us to strive towards an outcome that we, our clients, and the environment can be proud of. And at the same time, may you all remain profitable. Thanks.
Just unmute yourself again, please.
Yes, okay, great, thank you. I get so excited when I watch these videos that I forget to unmute. David, thank you very, very much for such a thought-provoking presentation. You know, we set up the rules of SAIAshare, and we call it SAIAshare 105 because we committed to T20 cricket, but today it was worth every minute of what we had a look at and what we've been led to think about. So I'm going to skip the Q&A. We didn't receive any questions from the onlookers, and I presume that is because everyone was so engrossed with the content of what we've been looking at that it's not been necessary. We'll leave the questions for another day. But that leaves me then with a privilege, and I'm sure that all of those who've attended this session of SAIAshare 105 would like me to thank both Sydney and David for two remarkable presentations. Guys, you don't prepare a presentation like this the afternoon before SAIAshare. This has taken literally weeks and weeks of graft to get all of these slides together. And what I love about both presentations, if I may say, is that both have left me with so many thoughts that I'd like to share and think about, and questions that I'd like to ask. You know, Sydney, if I think of your presentation, then I just realize the one big question is how we as SAIA can engage on behalf of our membership to interact with government, with the various tiers of government. And so I would like to ask, if I may, that please stay on board. Let's pursue this question. And through SAIA, it's too big an issue to deal with as individual practices and as small practices as we are. You know, David, and then over to you. I've written down a few comments here, and I don't know where to start and where to end. But your comment about adding value, I mean, that is a crucial. It's a question we should all ask. Adding value at every stage. The thought of being able to be creative within a practice where you are balanced and you and your brother Simi complement one another, so that you, in a sense, create the vacuum in which you can operate creatively, while Simi takes the punches on the body. You know, another thought is the thought of trying to remain in control of as much as possible, because we find as architects that when we lose control, the external factors start dictating to us, like clients. And I love that slide that you put up. And in fact, I think that slide should be circulated widely. So, because that's exactly what happens when the more intense clients become involved. Well, the higher the fee should be. And it was wonderful to see that document, that Workstage 3 document that your practice prepares. I think may that be a lesson for all of us. Right, thank you very much to Nathan, Brendan, and Everlast. You're a company with vision, I can see that. And we honestly appreciate the fact that you have come on board as a sponsor for last month's event, this event, and may I say next month's event as well. And I do trust and that everyone who's seen the products that you're producing are as excited as I am about the potential of those products. And I have no doubt that the company will receive support and benefit from those who've been watching SAIAshare. Karina, thank you very much for steering the ship so well again. And then I just want to say to all the SAIAshare friends, guys, thank you so much. This is a practice committee initiative that's presented for your benefit. You know, if I think of all those mid-career courses, the 5-day cricket, the SAI cricket events I attended over the years, I didn't actually grasp the value of them and the sacrificial involvement of all the presenters in those years, who so generously shared their experience and their knowledge with us. And we hope to do this on an ongoing basis. Just in order for us to gauge the relevance of the topics, we would really appreciate it if in the chat box you can maybe just give us a score, 1 for irrelevant and 10 for exceptionally meaningful. And you're welcome to be honest. And any other comment that you'd like to make, just put it into the chat box and it will not be held against you. Remember, SAIAshare runs on the first Friday of every month. We're committed to that. Please join us again on the 2nd of July for another power-packed, exhilarating, seriously concentrated dose of pleasure and wholesome architectural nourishment. Our next presenters, you guessed, Simi Perutan of Perutan Carroll Architects, who's going to present to us the other side of what David has been talking about, and we need to know that. So please come and listen. How to run your practice profitably. And then Luyanda Mpahlwa, who was president of SAIA a year or two ago, also from Cape Town, from Design Space Africa. So next week you will get a main course and you will get an entree and you will enjoy it. We're going to close this session with information on presenters for next month. So to all of you, once again, thank you so much for attending, and we hope to see you next month. Keep well.